What I am about to tell you today is an experiment, and I have a hypothesis that is proven until it's not. Today I'll talk about how to change the habits of visitors on your website, if your visitors even have habits, and if so, how to influence them with running tests. I will also explain what server-side testing is, how long it takes to change a habit, and what all of this has to do with plastic surgery. Enough to look forward to. Let's do this. Let me first briefly introduce myself. I'm Lucia van Brink and I'm recording from my office in the Netherlands. This is my resume in logos. I'm currently working for the experimentation agency Spiro, which was previously called CXL Agency. My clients include for now SEMrush, the SEO tool, and a big Australian beauty website called Adore Beauty with 1.5 million visitors a month. Previously, I was lead experimentation of a news website called nu.nl in the Netherlands, and before that I was optimizing for a big telco. Okay, enough about me. Let's start with understanding what a habit is. There are multiple models that can help with that. Basically, this is how it works. There is a cue or trigger. Think about your cell phone buzzing, and you crave to know what that message might be or who might want to reach you. You respond by automatically filling in your code or unlocking your phone with your face without thinking about it, and this is the habit. And then you get the reward you craved for. You find out who sent you a message. And there you go, dopamine hit, brain is happy. What this model doesn't tell you is how long it takes to form a habit. And if we look to the average A/B test, those usually run somewhere between 1 or 4 weeks. Maybe you use the bandwidth calculation sheet from the Dutch agency Online Dialogue to learn how many weeks your test should run. It's a great tool that tells you what the minimal detectable effect is that you can measure, the minimum uplift of conversions, for instance, and you can tweak the number of weeks to see if the MDE goes up or down and estimate if your test is still doable. Maybe you use the user-friendly Spiro or CXL calculator that shows you that a test can run up to 6 weeks and what the minimal detectable effect there is. This gives you a clear sense of how long tests should run if you use either the sheet or the Spiro calculator. But one thing, all these calculators were made before server-side testing became a thing. And with client-side testing, which is based on cookies, longer than 4 weeks of testing is usually not recommended because visitors can fall out of the variation if the cookie gets deleted. Your test will get noise in the data. Now, if you want to change a routine or behavior of a visitor, how long does that actually take? And this is where things start to get interesting. The first evidence of how long it takes to change a behavior or a routine is from Maxwell Maltz, and he was a plastic surgeon. When he would do a nose job or leg transplant on a patient, he noticed that it would take a minimum of 21 days to adjust to the new situation. Now, this 21 days has been made popular by self-help professionals like Tony Robbins, but one thing happened. They forgot to mention it was a minimum of 21 days. Luckily, Philippa Lely did real peer-reviewed research and learned with her study when she asked people to form the habit of walking after dinner that it would take them between 16 and 265 days to form a habit. Very different for each individual, and it ended up with an average of 66 days, which is more than 2 months. And just for you to know, you wouldn't be the first. Booking.com also run an experiment for more than a year on the Genius program to see if people would really come back after booking once, use the discount they would get, and book again. So, if you want to run an experiment on a part of your website that visitors are very attached to, or they might have routines around, you might want to think about this. You would need to run a test longer than just 4 or 6 weeks. And this is something that wouldn't happen within just 1 month. A colleague of mine posted that she listened a lot to Radio 6 and it got switched to the front of the row on the website, but she kept on scrolling back because her habit was already formed. And this is something that I also found as an experimenter. I was optimizing for this news website with 8 million visitors in the Netherlands, and everything was so different from optimizing for an e-commerce. Visitors came every day. multiple times a day on fixed times, and it was like working for YouTube or Facebook. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. And when we would put a redesign live, the question was always, don't people just have to get used to it? And actually, my honest answer was, I'm not sure. Then came the possibility to do server-side testing. The news app rebuilt their backend and requested everything from the server, which made proper server-side testing without having to release a new app version every time possible. The dream of this news app was always to test in the app. More visitors were there. And previously it could be done, but not properly. Like I said, visitors had to install a new version of the app from the App Store, and that would take ages. And my strategy at that point was never really to test in apps. It would just take too much time and effort. And the money was mostly made with ads on the website and not on the app. But because of the high traffic in app, it was interesting, and it was later decided to build a new backend that worked completely server-side. To do this, a lot needed to happen. Every page needed to be rebuilt. And I think they are still doing this page by page, but they are keeping the project small. If you're thinking about server-side testing, it might be good to learn the pros and cons of this. Let's start with the advantages. First of all, you don't have the flicker effect that injecting code client-side does sometimes. Also, the winner can be implemented quickly because it's already built and it's just a server configuration. You can usually gradually roll out a new feature if you want, 10%, 20%, and so on. Or just go for the 100 immediately. You also get less load time because everything comes directly from the server. You can run tests longer without visitors losing their cookie. I'll get into this later. Users don't have to install a new app version in order to fall into the variation. It doesn't cost much testing credit. Some platforms use this. And you can test fast once everything is set up in your backend. Sometimes server-side testing is seen as the holy grail of experimentation, but actually it's not, because it also has its own cons. Server-side testing can get quite complex and it's still in its infancy. There is no easy optimal tool that can do everything. At nu.nl we used Firebase, a free Google tool, as a front to talk to the backend, a beta version. The only thing that it could do was put the test live, tweak the percentage of visitors, and that was it. And most tools don't have, for example, preview link, and that is something that can be built, of course. The developer has also to configure every test on the back end. So instead of test ending up at the plate of front-end developers, now tests will need to be built by back-enders. You also cannot tweak code yourself if you're good with CSS or something. There is no what you see is what you get editor, and most tools have no detailed targeting options. Are you still with me there? That was maybe a lot to take in, but if you got interested in server-side testing, let's quickly discuss how mature your organization needs to be before server-side testing usually becomes relevant. Let me walk you through my simple experimentation maturity model. There are much more complex ones, and I think this is a good start. Usually companies first have a jack of all trades, and this is someone that does zero or experimentation on the side of his job and can't really focus 100% on that. The next phase is when there is one person hired to do experimentation. This person does a lot by him or herself, maybe even the development of tests, probably QAing, and probably also tries to inspire people to work data-driven and get experimentation throughout the whole organization. Then the next phase is that there will be a support system around this person. The idea of validating and having a data-driven approach is spread in the organization, and a lot of different departments might want to run tests. This is when switching or adding server-side to your tool setup becomes interesting, because it might take some time and money and resources to set it up. The last phase is having this center of excellence that checks the quality of experiments being done while a lot of different departments or people can just put tests live. For the news website that had visitors with these strong habits, I started running some tests for 3 months. I would analyze them after the usual 2 weeks and then let them run and reanalyze after 3 months again. I did this 3 times. And there are some comments to be made with this kind of approach. If you Do this, you will end up with more data, which makes smaller changes measurable that weren't measurable before. Also, 3 months is a very long time and it just costs time. Maybe visitors are stuck in the test and therefore money. But I did find very interesting results that made sense once they were analyzed. There was a test that really impacted behavior only on the long-term period and not on the shorter period. This was a test about showing ads. Two other tests with a redesign and with adding a new feature had no different result. It was just the same. And I did this 3 month thing only for big innovative tests, not for every. So summarizing, most had the same result, not all. This is my outcome for now. Like I said, this talk is an experiment. I went where no one I knew had gone before. Did you also do an experiment like this? Let me know. This is a hypothesis that we as experts can actually develop together and maybe learn more about habit building behavior. Are you wondering if you even need to think about habits or routines on your website? Well, I think that most websites are these drop and shop websites. Visitors land and buy, or otherwise they return only during their buy cycle. Think about buying a phone, a bed, or glasses. On the other hand, we have visitors that have strong habits that return daily or at least at a set time or moment. Think about news websites, maybe Amazon, YouTube, banking, and weather websites. So it's good to ask yourself the question, what does the website I optimize for look like? And I want you to remember that every experimentation program is different. I have spoken to websites that clearly have visitors with a strong routine, with a strong habit, but they didn't want to test for 3 months because it takes too much time and too much resources. Sometimes you cannot compare your own work to others, and that's also okay. Experimentation is also about this. And sometimes it's about being innovative, adapting, trying new things. Also at my previous job at the news website. And that's something I had to get used to coming from a simple e-commerce. I had to get used to it for at least 21 days. Thank you. And if you like, please connect with me on LinkedIn.